start to look towards our next series of the day now, as we're going to be moving on into Mouse Sports going up against Dyansty. Now, this is a matchup that I think a lot of people are very excited for. Just to give you guys at home some context here, this is somewhat of a grudge match because for two reasons. Tricky was on Dyansty at finals, now he's jumped onto the Mouse Sports roster, and also this Mouse Sports roster is kind of Mowgli's old team as well, so there's a lot of kind of mixed emotions coming into this one.
I mean, you go back to the spring season in London, this Mouse Sports lineup was the Dyansty lineup. This is the team that played on the stage in the London Unified Championship. So definitely an intriguing matchup in terms of the history between these two lineups.
Also, these teams are right now at the middle of the pack for the European side, so winning this match and going on, getting more points is very important for both of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like a grudge match in many ways for these two teams. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this one. Let's take a look at Mouse Sports. They're going to be the first roster jumping on into this game. Now, it's Just Man, Tricky, and I'm the Doom. Obviously, Tricky joining the roster last week, and honestly, I was impressed by his performance on this squad.
Yeah, like we were talking about, it's almost exactly what this lineup needed. Just someone that can take pressure off of the jungle. And that's exactly what he provides. Because if your opponent tries to focus the jungle against them, Tricky's going to take over in the lane and just start decimating these turrets, decimating his lane opponent. So you can no longer just sit there and say, okay, we're just going to focus on the Doom. We're going to make sure he's on an uncomfortable hero. We're going to constantly invade his jungle. And just that's no longer the win condition against Mouse Sports.
At the same time, I still worry for Mouse Sports just because they fall to the pressure too easily. If they lose one game in a match, they can end up losing the entire best of three. So that's the biggest weakness that they have.
All right, we'll see if TILT comes on into play for them. Their opponent's going to be Dyansty coming on into this one. Mowgli, PT Lam, and Riku Meza. Now, obviously, we just mentioned Mowgli was coaching the Mouse Sports squad way back in London, so he's going to be coming in. Theoretically, might know some of the inside knowledge on this team.
He could, but at the same time, when they were under the Dyansty banner, that was when we knew I'm the Doom as being like, you know, kind of this one-trick pony. Yep. Tricky was still very much unproven. So things have changed quite a bit over just the course of 2 seasons to get to this point. So I'm not even sure how much of the information that Mowgli might have against these guys is even going to be relevant.
I think it's going to be relevant to an extent because for me, Dyansty, if they want to win this match, they're going to have to get ahead in the draft. They're going to need to get an advantage, make sure that they're able to execute the strategies that their compositions need them to execute, and that's their game plan. That's the game plan that I want them to see, that I want them to have.
All right, well, I want to talk a little bit about Riku Meza coming on into this game because back at finals in Los Angeles, this guy stepped up, especially in their game against the North American squad. He you could see that he was really doing his best to have that huge impact in the early game, and I feel like that's going to be very important against a team as mechanically skilled as Mouse.
Yeah, and almost 90% kill participation for this team. A lot of what they try and do kind of comes through Riku Meza in the jungle, setting up plays for his teammates and being the one that kind of is usually on a hard engaged type of hero so that they can make those plays happen.
That's usually the case when PT Lam is not on the roster, however, we saw that at Live Finals. When PT Lam is on the roster, he's an incredibly strong carry that can output a lot of damage if he's on Vox, for example, and provide to his team what they need. We saw last week he was able to perform very strong. If he's able to continue that performance and Mowgli and Riku Meza step up and continue supporting him, Dyansty can do great things.
All right, we'll see. It definitely feels like both of the carries kind of have a lot of impetus on them in this series to be that carry as the role would suggest. But it's time to start to talk about the draft. Obviously, in all of the highlights that we just witnessed from both of these two teams last week, CP Idris was one of the huge factors. How much of that is going to be like a priority pick in this series? Are we expecting to see Idris kind of first picked and things like that just because of how much these carries like to play it?
It's going to be heavily prioritized. It's so strong in the current meta. Both of these laners are incredibly talented with it. They're both very familiar with melee type laners as well. So I would expect to see Idris have a heavy priority. Very likely the Blackfeather as well going to be also, you know, probably pick banned in every single game this series off the bat.
You ask about the CP Idris, we just saw it earlier in the Fnatic versus G2. G2 won the second game with it. This is a character that, or a hero that can be very strong, especially going into the late game. It's both prioritized on the side of Mouz Sports and on the side of Dynasty is going to be very contested in the draft.
All right, so what else are we expecting to see coming through for these two teams? Because, you know, these teams both, we've kind of seen them successful when it gets to that aggression. And we know for Dynasty especially, their late game shot calling sometimes isn't the best and it can kind of fall apart late game. So are we expecting just both teams trying to draft for this early game, trying to be aggressive to start things off?
They're both going to be trying to be aggressive. What I'm curious to going to see is how much focus is going to be on the captains in this series, because both Mowgli and Justman very well known for having diverse hero pools in the captain role. So this could be one of the first times where we don't really see the captains getting that first ban priority.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to see a first ban captain for Mouz at least. We'll see if Dynasty are going to follow suit. You'd assume that the Grace will be taken off the board, but actually focusing on the Lance instead.
Lance is just man's one of his strongest characters. He's a very mechanically skilled player, so he can do a lot of work with playmaking roamers. However, he picks up the Grace, still extremely strong early game, and provides a lot of support to her team as the team fights go on. Dynasty, they need to get PT Lam on a character that he's extremely comfortable on. Vox and CP Idris is what he played last week and was very successful on. So if they get him one of those two characters or one of those two heroes, and then or perhaps another hero that he's been practicing a lot, they can do very well.
In the past, PT Lam was actually extremely well known for his Celeste as well, so that could be a big priority for them if Mouz Sports doesn't ban it here, which you would expect them to do because of the Black Feather ban.
One thing I noticed from last week, Dynasty are prioritizing ranged compositions with triple range. Lyra, Vox, and Samuel. Lyra, Vox, Kestrel, Celeste in the mix. Compositions that can siege and poke and sustain at the same time. That's what they prioritized. If they go for a similar composition, it works, but they need to execute it precisely. The moment you go up against a composition that has a lot of CC and you get picked off, that's when you fall apart. So they picked up the Lyra. That's the first component to that composition. Let's see what their second pick is here. The CP Idris ban comes through. We mentioned how PT Lam performed very well on it last week, so Mouz Sports don't want to go up against it.
Yeah, that Celeste is open though, and that would play into that siege composition that you were talking about. We'll see if they want to go for that one. Obviously, there are still things available that could go into that, but the Black Feather ban certainly opens the pickup.
Yeah, I would really like to see the Celeste come through for Dynasty, just because, again, PT Lam is incredibly talented with that hero, and they're going to go for the Kestrel instead. So now, without having Black Feather available to them, they're going to offer a Celeste to Mouz Sports.
I think the reason why they picked up the Kestrel and sorry to interrupt you is because they wanted to take it away from Am the Doom. The only thing they needed to remember is Mouz Sports weren't putting any prioritization on that pick when they had her available. So if they went for it just to take it away from him, Celeste would have been a better pick. However, PT Lam is still an incredibly strong Kestrel weapon power laner. So he's going to be able to do exactly the same thing with the Siege Poke comp.
Yeah.
With the Kestrel weapon power, so they don't lose on too much just yet. And they can still pick up the Celeste last as jungle.
Yeah, it's definitely something that still can fit into their composition. That's going to be a Fortress locked on in, though, alongside of Vox. This is very similar to what we've seen before. Usually the Lance instead of the Grace, but Grace definitely fits this composition as well.
Yeah, and having that extra healing, assuming it is going to be a Captain Grace with the Jungle Fortress, you know, there is a chance that they try and mix it up a bit, especially in Europe. That's where we see a lot of teams have been trying to run the Grace in different roles, but having that extra heal for the Fortress when he dives in can just make this composition last that much longer, which means there's that many more bleed stacks getting procced.
I actually like the Grace better than the Lance with this composition, just because your initiation is so much more effective now. When Fortress tries to pop his wolves, the Grace range on her A, once she overdrives it, as we mentioned earlier, is very long and she can engage very easily. On top of that, the heals. The Baptiste picks comes through for Dynasty, so that's a Kestrel weapon power with a Baptiste and a Lyra. Works very similar to the strategy that they want to execute, which is that they want to go up to lane, siege, and try to poke at the turret. If they can play it precisely and not get too close to the Fortress, they can win. But if they get too close, that comp is very dangerous.
That's going to be the key thing, right? You're against a Fortress and a Grace with a Vox here. Like, we're going to see hard engage from Mouz the second the Dynasty step too far forward. How do you feel this one's going to pan out, Bacon, coming into this? Because This feels like a difficult thing to execute for Dynasty.
It's actually a fairly difficult thing to execute for both sides. You know, Dynasty obviously wanting to go all in once Mouz gets a little bit too close, but Mouz needs to get close and walk into that engage range. So it's going to be very interesting.
All right, well, it's going to be Mouz going up against Dynasty here. It's time to jump into game one. Let us know who you are supporting on social media. It's going to be hashtag Vainglory8 coming on through. Let us know. Join the conversation online. But it's time to head on into this one. It's time to pass it back over to Dowsy and Denomine to jump into game one of the series.
Denomine, it's a story of team secret. Old rivals, old friends. Mowgli versus his old pals here. Mouz versus Dynasty on the Halcyon Fold.
It absolutely is, and when it comes down to this matchup, I was super impressed with Mowgli at the actual Unified Championship. He's really worked on his mechanical skills, and you know, his activatables were just so perfect that you know, it's going to be exciting to see his matchup versus Justman, who is another really good captain. And we talked about, well, the analysts talked about their flexibility in the captain picks earlier. So obviously we have the Grace versus the Lyra, which will be the two healers, and I think they have pretty interesting trade-offs.
I definitely agree. The double healer coming out, not really seeing so much priority on it. Look at this, Mouz in the lane, diving onto PT Lamb, popping minion candy. PT Lamb dead, straight up. Mouz able to find the kill. And if this was a Hollywood movie, Denomine, Mouz are going to take game one. And then for Mowgli, up against his three old former pals, he's going to take game two and game three. He's going to get the babe, he's going to go home happy, and the revenge arc will be complete. So that's the Hollywood narrative. We'll have to see what actually happens.
Yeah, we absolutely will. Obviously, you know, the Grace will come online at that level 6 mark, getting that double Divine Intervention, but Mowgli will provide his team a substantial amount of healing throughout the early and mid game with the Imperial Sigil, as well as can offer quite a bit of lane threat as well with the Principal Arcanum perks. Ooh, I didn't quite see who got that. It did go over to Dynasty, so looking pretty good for them right now. You know, they did give up that first, but this is a pretty heavy engage that we get here out of the side of Mouz.
Yeah, super aggressive. We saw them run a very similar composition. First game of last week, week one of the autumn season, they ran it with Lance rather than Grace. And then since then, we've just kind of seen everyone in EU adapting it in some format. However, only Mouz have seemingly made it work, which is the interesting part. So that is definitely going in their favor in their matchup against Dynasty.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I think it really works well with any captain that can follow up the dive with any kind of crowd control. So a Lance, Grace, Catherine, anybody who can capitalize with some lockdown once you make that heavy engagement really can run away with these fights. But now, Elder Triana started up, but it does look like Mouz probably has the advantage here.
Yeah, Mouz certainly do. Going to be easily taken away. I'm the Doom gets the last hit. And now you see I'm the Doom and Tricky making a rotation towards the backs to share experience, get Tricky back up on the energy bar as well. Justman moves in. Justman moves in, then the ambient gold likely goes to him rather than to I'm the Doom. But what's instead happening is Tricky and I'm the Doom taking turns of last hitting, making sure that they get some gold and Justman doesn't get choked either.
Yeah, it's definitely smart play out of them, and you know, that is going to help get both Tricky and I'm the Doom to the point that they have their ultimates available and they can be incredibly game-changing. Obviously, if Tricky's able to line up a 3-man silence, that can be absolutely devastating to the hopes of the side of Dynasty, as well as those wolves can really pack a punch on a carry Fortress, who does have a double weapon blade right now. Might even be going into a tension bow aftershock build.
We saw I'm the Doom do that last week, and it worked out very well for him. And then he went into a supportive role. Fountain, Crucible, Wall Treads, truly just became a support for his team and allowed Tricky to step up. Tricky built a very unique build. I believe it was double Tornado Trigger, Breaking Point, and I don't know if it was a monocle to end it off. I think it may have been 4 weapon power items and something very unique on box. Another engage coming out from Mouz. It's going to be Mowgli the one knocked up, but he is not the target. Mouz just clearing the way under the turret. You do see Justman going back to pick up his Fountain.
Yeah, Dynasty did get a pretty good chunk of damage down on that turret despite how early it is. And that's due to obviously PT Lamb. We know how devastating a weapon Kestrel can be onto those objectives. Silver shots do so much damage from a range. It doesn't really put you in a huge threat. So again, overall, first blood going over to the side of Mouz. Gold lead is pretty non-existent. You know, we're basically dead even on gold at this point. So overall, you know, not really any team getting an advantage, but a little bit of additional objective damage from the side of Dynasty. And that is something that we really know them for, is Mowgli and his shot calling. So it was talked about a little bit at the Unified Finals as well. When Tricky was playing for them, he did most of the shot calling, but now that Tricky's on the other team, I have to think that that's going back onto the side of Mowgli.
I have to say, especially Mowgli and Rikumeza, I believe, share that responsibility between them. Justman definitely does a lot of calling. Tricky as well for the team of Mouz, certainly a leader. Temple Tenjimbo has been picked up. This is a huge power spike Mouz might be able to execute on. The auto attack that comes out of Tricky and I'm the Doom with those Tenjimbo procs really just destroys a squishy target like a Kestrel. And if you're able to stick on top of her and Mowgli's not able to sustain enough healing, then easy to drop them. Have to see how Tricky builds. I'm super intrigued to see if we get that double tornado trigger build again. Definitely a unique flavor on Vox, and I kind of want to see it.
I think it provides a lot of single target damage, specifically for the fact that they need to drop either PT Lamb or Rikumeza very early on in the fight if they want to win it. And that's really kind of the case, is this is going to come down to Mowgli and his Bright Bulwark timings. If Mouz goes into, you know, commit into their engage, if the wolves are popped, then there's a huge opportunity. Oh no!
That's a huge disaster for the side of Mouz. They already lost I'm the Doom and Fountain. Not being able to use by Justman. The Fearsome Shade keeps it from being used. Now Tricky and Mouz have to defend their turret against Dynasty. Rikumeza and PT Lamb, a lot of range and artillery to fly out of them. That's going to be the turret falling. Nothing Justman can do to stop it. Turret 1 goes to Dynasty, and the gold lead's theirs as well.
Yeah, and I'm the Doom died so fast in that last fight. It was literally 100-0 in a matter of a second. And, you know, that is kind of the downfall of the carry Fortresses. Fortress is overall not the tankiest of targets. He does get some bonus health when you use the Wolves, the attack of the pack, but unfortunately that was not the case. And the squishy Fortress died very, very quickly, which resulted in a kill and a turret going over to the side of Dynasty, helping out get some gold in their pocket. PT Lamb working towards that monocle will have it as soon as he gets the opportunity to shop Dowsy, and that is a first scary point where a Kestrel can do just so much damage.
Yeah, and that's the key to kind of holding Mouz at bay. Glimmer shots into active camo traps. If PT Lamb can lay down a trap that CCs Mouz when they try and jump on top of him, opens up a lot of windows for Rikumeza to get on in there with his Ordained and his Fearsome Shade. Mowgli to provide enough healing. I do expect I'm the Doom, once he finishes this Aftershock, to start building almost captain-like items to get tanky and also provide more of utility role for his team. This is super risky, I think, for Mouz to start up the gold mine. They've got it down to half HP, but Dynasty are moving in, and Mowgli so confident to move in as well. Gold miner low will be secured by Mouz, but the Fearsome Shade will go out. Tricky blocks if it has to run. Fountain will keep them healthy. Justman should be able to block that as well. The one shot hitting him in behind. Mouz going to take the gold miner and run.
Yeah, so overall, this game has been back and forth so far. The objective going over to each, however, is positional objective going to Dynasty. A little bit more gold going over to the side of Mouz, and now it is PT Lamb and Rikumeza splitting that ambient gold there in the back in the experience. And overall, we do have a slight lead as far as level goes for Tricky, but now that Justman is level 6, he has that Divine Intervention online, it might be a little bit different in the next fight, as it's going to give I'm the Doom a lot more of that tanky sustainability when he dives on into the fight, as he obviously does not have any defense yet. But as you mentioned, we'll probably be going into that very support-like build after the double proc is done, and that is the point that we're at.
Yeah, certainly is. He has that reflex block, And I guess the indicator that he's going utility is if he builds it into a Crucible rather than Aegis. If he does so, very likely we get a Fountain to come out of him as well. Mouz currently playing this rotation game. They push the wave up. They have minion candies available to them if they want to really hard push the wave. And then they just rotate. Try and share the gold between Tricky and I'm the Doom. Try and steal any of the front camps or the treants from the side of Dynasty. Whilst Just Man kind of is put into a position to scout out any potential enemies that they may run into.
Yeah, absolutely. And PT Lamb, unfortunately, at this point in time, is sitting on a lot of gold in his pocket. And, you know, the gold is nice, but if a team fight breaks out, gold does not help you win the fight. So he'll likely be looking to rotate to the shop here very soon. 2,600 gold, almost 2,700 gold for him. So definitely looking to make a shop chance here. But it is Mouz denying shop in the jungle, and he's just going to push another wave up now.
Yeah, no, it's wise move from PT Lamb. Pushing the second wave, forces it backwards, but Mouz, they're rotating on a gold miner, forcing Dynasty to come to them and potentially team fight gold miner. Will go over to Mouz, the attack the pack popped. Dynasty instantly going to run away. Mouz, another objective goes over to them, another huge spike of gold. They're up by 1,000 at this point, and I'm the Doom will be going towards that Crucible.
Yeah, he absolutely will, and you know, you touched on it earlier, it's really protect Tricky. It's you get a lot of dive for your team, you do your best job at making sure Tricky's alive. The double tornado trigger is now out with the tension bow. I believe the last item was a breaking point. I would have to double check though. It was either a breaking point or a sorrow blade, but overall just a lot of single target damage that does, you know, against a squishy target like PT Lamb or Rikumeza on the Baptiste and Kestrel respectively, that Vox build can really blow somebody up, but they've turned their attention onto the Crystal Sentry, and now it's Dynasty rotating down, Dowsy.
Dynasty looking for a catch. Great flare comes out of Justman, but how do Mouz react to this? They still have to escape. Dynasty aren't going to engage. I think the impressive thing, and of course all the people watching will see it, you just have to pay attention. As soon as that breaking point is purchased, look at the stack count. Pay attention to Tricky's stack count. It goes up so quickly with this triple attack speed build, and Tornado Trigger's offering so much attack speed as it is, with the crit added on top and the tension bow to cut through any armor that's purchased. Tricky will be a fearsome threat to face against.
Yeah, he absolutely will, and we are getting very close to that being an online item. In fact, next time he makes it down to the shop, that will be readily available to him, and it looks like they're going to do so now. So overall, that is a really good start here for the side of Mouz. Breaking point online, not quite enough to renew his infusion. But nobody on the enemy team is infused either, so they're going to turn it onto the gold mine. Here comes Dynasty. Maybe not in time though, Dowsy.
No, it's going to be easily secured by Mouz. Infusions will come out now from them. You see I'm the Doom. No Wave Gauntlet on him, can jump on top of Mowgli. Item silence, make sure that Mowgli is removed from the fight, and that just leaves a very squishy PT Lamb and Rikumeza to try and run away. They haven't really focused too much on the items on the side of Dynasty. PT Lamb has that Sorrow Blade double monocle, will be building towards an attack speed item of his own. Rikumeza has that Shadow Glass and the Clockwork, but that is it, has had to go into a defensive tree. Mowgli, wall treads there to get the team out, and those wall treads, if you can pop them before the Null-Wave Gauntlet comes out, then Mowgli has a good chance of escaping. But last week against Fnatic, against Netelet, we just saw so often that he would get caught out on this Finn, and the Null-Wave Gauntlet would come out in an appropriate time to even stop the wall treads from being popped, and it made it so easy for Tricky to take him down.
Yeah, it absolutely did, and you know, we're pretty slow paced in this game as far as the fighting goes. It's only 1 kill to 1 kill with a turret lead going over to the side of Dynasty, but you know, with the builds for Mouz right now, that can change very quickly.
Very true. Tricky in that Ordained. Watch Tricky's stack count. He can't even get into the fight. Maybe not. Looks like Mouz will have to escape this one as the Fearsome Shade forces them away. They're all so quick though. Fearsome Shade just runs them away as quickly as they come into the fight. Dynasty, though, very, very healthy due to the fact they have a Lyra. Mouz looking for items. Tricky buying an Aegis. He's almost at his full build. This turret is likely to fall. Let's see if Mouz go in for the team fight once more. Here they go. Justman in the middle. Look at Tricky going on in. Looking for a main target. Stacking up that breakpoint. Into the middle of the fight. Up to 8. Looking for more. Going forward. That's a kill. That's another one. It's gonna be a triple. Going over to I'm the Doom. Unless it was stolen away. Oh my goodness. The ace comes down. The Kraken respawns.
Yeah, 15 minutes in the game is not where you want to lose a fight, and it's a clean ace for Mouz. They pick up a turret, and, you know, as we look into this, Justman actually fell very far behind in this fight, but Tricky taking the passage through with I'm the Doom, they're able to chase down. The breaking point stacked up to 16 in that fight. 1, 2, 3 for I'm the Doom. Tricky, with the massive amount of breaking point stacks, goes through, just eliminates that turret, and they end up getting a Kraken off the back of it. But it's also important to make note here, I'm the Doom has a no-wave gauntlet now ready to go for this next fight. And this Crystal Sentry will be eliminated now. So, like I said, these fights now that Mouz has their builds all at the online point are going to start to change very, very quickly. And now with only a few turrets between them and a victory, here we go, Dyansty.
Tricky going back on in, as is I'm the Doom. Looking for the fight, Tricky just stacking on up. So many breaking point stacks, and look at Dynasty struggling to survive. The first kill gonna go to Tricky, but a good stun comes out. It's 2 for Tricky. Mowgli trying to escape, but I'm the Doom says no. And ace for Mouz. Twitch chat, how many stacks I need to know. It doesn't even matter. Kraken in the base. Only 2 turrets standing. Mouz looking like they're gonna take game 1.
Yeah, they definitely have the damage too. Now the death timers are running out, but as healthy as this Kraken is, as healthy as Mouz is, I don't think there's anything within a remote hope that Dynasty can do. And that's game 1 now going over to Mouz. Tricky proving to be such a magnificent pickup for this team. Dyansty, I am pretty excited for game number 2 and your Hollywood story that you brought up earlier.
Ooh, that's true. The Hollywood narrative. The gang bashes on Mowgli, but he's able to come through and find his justice. I guess that's what we have to look forward to. Will there be any script writers, or is it just going to be a 2-0 for Mouz? We will find out shortly, but before that, let's throw it back to Munch on the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. What a game coming out from Mouz in the end there. A lot of nothing happening for like 15 minutes, and then 2 minutes of just, okay, time to win the game now. It was all off the back of 1 missed position from Dynasty as well.
Yeah, I mean, really patient play from Mouz Sports, able to just let things kind of build up and get this composition to where it needs to be to have the level of performance that they wanted to in those team fights.
And I think that's a mistake from Dynasty. I felt like they were just afraid to make any proactive plays throughout the entirety of early game and mid game. Their comp needed to get ahead by sieging the turrets, taking the first turret, second turret way earlier, so that they can start kiting away the fortress when they try to engage. But that just didn't happen.
Yeah, and I mean, we actually have a clip at around 14 minutes where they start to try and take this second turret, but they were too far forward. And at this point, Mouz's composition is in its element.
Yeah, too far forward without really having any poke damage done to their opponents. They were the ones kind of starting this at diminished health. And you see, once this engaged composition is able to engage onto its targets, they just take them out so quickly.
And I love the addition of Grace to the Vox Fortress composition instead of the Lance, just because she's so much more reliable. And when Vox just charges in trying to finish off the opponents, the Grace heal comes through and she protects him so much better than Lance does. I love this composition with Grace.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the first team fight of the game, basically. And then there was one other team fight, and that was kind of everything wrapped up. Let's take a look at how Mouz kind of finished things out. And this was the situation when you've got a Kraken and you're the hard engage comp. Things look pretty great for you.
Yeah, I mean, they just went in on the Kestrel, and you saw that once the Fortress Wolves are popped out, Vox just starts stacking up his breaking points. There's nothing stopping him. They have to kite away the Wolves, so Vox is free to deal damage. And Fortress constantly goes in and out in the team fight. Grace providing the heals. It is a really strong comp. Dynasty had a good idea with the composition that they had, that they needed to kite away the wolves. The Lyra Bulwark, something we mentioned a lot. The Baptiste Fearsome Shade is such a great disengage tool, but they weren't using them correctly because they were never positioned correctly to start kiting in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, they had this huge rage advantage early on, and they weren't just shoving in turrets. Like, you have a weapon Kestrel and a Baptiste just force your opponents out of lane. They can't sustain. Sustain was taken out of the game in this update. So just force your way down the lane is what they really should have been able to do.
Yeah, so not being kind of proactive enough in a different way than what we usually talk. Needed to be in that lane, making things happen. Now, we're looking at I'm the Doom now as we're going to be looking towards this second game. He's definitely one of the players to be watching in this series. Obviously, managing to take control of that game.
Yeah, and was able to just, again, stay safe for so long. We talking about almost 15 minutes into the game. The score is 1-1. And only one turret has been taken. Like, there wasn't much happening, and that played perfectly into Mouz Sports' composition. They were able to get this fortress scaled up to the point where those stacks, when they were procced, did so much damage. And, of course, Vox, having so much attack speed, is able to proc them that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and the composition, the thing that it lacks when Lance is not with them is their early game strength. Grace is not incredibly strong at holding off aggression. And Fortress is the weakest jungler you can have throughout the early game, even though he builds tension. But you can't get into his jungle and you can shut him down early on. That's what Dynasty needed to do, or at least siege a lot of siege and lane a lot and get a lot of turret damage by poking. They didn't do either.
Yeah, they needed to find a way to get an advantage early on into the game. Now, this week I was chatting with Mowgli earlier on, and I was asking how he was feeling coming on into this series. And apparently, they've been working on a lot of problems at Dynasty.
We passed, like, during this week, after the last week of Heavy Late, we passed through a lot of problems right now. And we started to fix them one by one, and it's on a very good way. When you pass through a terrible situation and you manage to come back from it, after you feel like very more confident about your plays, you communicate better with your teammates, and that's what we want to prove like the next weekend.
All right, so they're feeling confident coming into this week. They feel like they have improved over their performance last week. Now we'll see what they're going to do, what they're going to change up coming on into this game, because obviously the siege composition didn't really work out. Are we expecting Dynasty to go straight back to the drawing board and change style coming into this next game?
I would hope so, because that kind of style, this is the style that's the old European style of just play passive, wait for 15 to 20 minutes, and then try and fight and win the game. And this is the European style that didn't give them a single win against international teams until just very recently. So hopefully they do change it up. I don't want to see this play style. The composition wasn't the issue. It was the way that they executed that was the big issue for me.
I agree. If they go for a different strategy or the same thing, they just need to execute better.
We'll see what they are going to draft coming on into this one. Dynasty banning away Lyra as the first ban. Not something that we've seen a whole lot. It was something incredibly popular last season, not so much this time around.
Yeah, it's been mostly focused on the Catherine and the Grace, but banning away the Lyra guarantees either Catherine or Grace for Dynasty, so they could go for it. Obviously, with Mowgli, we know we can play pretty much any captain or any hero as a captain even, but I would highly expect the Grace to come out here.
All right, well, Blackfeather is going to be the first lock-in. This has been an incredibly high priority pick coming through for Europe in general. We'll see how that's going to pan out for Dynasty in this one.
And they can flex that. BT Lamp plays it very well in the lane, as well as Rico Meza plays it very well in the jungle. So it's a flex pick for them. I think it's smart just because it denies a few picks from Mouse, like the Celeste, as we've mentioned before. And at the same time, as I said, it's a flex pick. Grace comes through for Mouse Sports. Strong roamer. They just picked it. They just won with it. So it's a little dangerous to give it over again when a player is feeling very confident on a hero. You want to take him off of that hero rather than give it back to him. So Justman is going to get Grace again unless they flex it to the jungle, which I don't expect. There's less ban just because they can't pick it against the Blackfeather, and they don't want to go up against it alongside the Blackfeather. It's a very dangerous duo that you could go up against. So Mouse Sports so far smart with their draft.
Yeah, it's almost like the Catherine Batiste situation where if one of those heroes goes through, you have to ban away the second one. You can't let one team get both the Batiste and the Celeste. So smart ban for Mouse Sports, just knowing the meta, understanding what is incredibly strong right now, and ensuring that combo doesn't go over.
All right, we'll see what the ban is going to be for Dynasty here. It's going to be a Rhyme banned away. So obviously they already have that Blackfeather, potentially looking for another melee to come on into this composition. Mouse Sports, I mean, what do you do if you're Mouse now with a Rhyme in the second ban? That's not something you're going to have been expecting.
I mean, the Rhyme just means that Dynasty wants to go for a melee-heavy comp. I've noticed that CP Idris has made it so far. So if Mouse Sports don't pick it up here, it's very possible that Dynasty pick it up. Even though CP Idris is a ranged hero, he still is, you know, he has short range, so he has to stick close to the team fight. So Rhyme is a good ban because they already have the Black Feather locked in. It's most likely going to be a roamer that's melee, so I like the ban. Glaive comes through from Mouse Sports. I think they picked it because they thought Dynasty wanted to pick it by banning Rhyme, so they're trying to deny it preemptively. It works good with Grace already because you can flex it into the lane, you can flex it into the jungle, so it doesn't take away too much from Mouse Sports.
Yeah, not only is it just a, you know, thinking that maybe they wanted it, but PT Lamb we saw last season on the lane Glaive was phenomenal. So definitely, I feel like that's just a counter pick to Dynasty in general, not to necessarily to what Dynasty wanted to do, but just to what they know are Dynasty's strengths. And there's going to be a Samuel coming out, so this will be a lane Blackfeather. I really like the fact that they're putting PT Lamb back on one of these melee laners. That's where his strengths seem to lie most. But this composition it's going to be a weird one because it doesn't really synergize with itself all that much.
Yeah, Blackfeather is going to want to go in on a carry that's on the backline, and Lance will want to engage too. Samuel will try to follow up with his damage, but the biggest problem is that Samuel's damage is not selective. He can't get it on the target he wants. It's mostly just blocked by the frontline characters that are in front of him. So for example, if Blackfeather is going to try to dive on Scarf, he's going to be able to get there. Lance is going to help, but Samuel is not going to be able to help too much because his damage is most likely will be blocked by Grace or Glaive.
It's also directional damage, as you were talking about, which means a Grace, the Holy Shield, is a directional Holy Shield. If she uses that onto Samuel, whoever he targets is going to be taking 40% reduced damage, regardless of, you know, where in the fight he's able to get to. So a very interesting pickup for me. I'm not sure I agree 100% with Samuel into this composition, especially when Glaive is already there too, who can knock Samuel out of Drifting Dark so efficiently.
Honestly, one of the strangest things to me is just the ban on Rhyme into picking a ranged jungler.
I think they may have been looking for the Glaive.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that one was in the end, but it's time to get on into this game. It's time to jump into Game 2, see if Dynasty can come back in this series. Let us know who you're supporting using that hashtag Vainglory8. But it's time to pass it over once again to Dowsy and Denomine.
Thank you very much, Munchables. Dynasty versus Mouse 1-0 to the boys in red. On the red side of the map as well. We'll have to find out whether or not Dynasty can fight in their revenge arc, or else it's just a 2-0 to Mouse.
Yeah, Mouse was looking really good in that first game. Again, we talked about how good of a pickup Tricky was for this lineup. And then obviously Justman and I'm the Doom, no strangers to the competitive scene here in Europe. Definitely really good players. I'm the Doom, a pretty renowned Scarf as well. Tricky's those weapon laners that he's oh so good at. But, you know, it's going to be a little interesting. You know, it's going to come down to Riku Meza trying to find some good damage onto I'm the Doom, which with a Glaive and a Grace in the front line will not be easy to do.
No, definitely not. Especially with the damage reduction that they can apply to I'm the Doom. Keep him nice and healthy in case PT Lamb does get on top of him here. And that's something that it's probably worth highlighting, Denomine. Tricky does not play CP laners competitively. We've not seen him do it yet. Kind of known for his weapon power laners. So Mouse, they've shown that they have this very unique ability to draft compositions that we just haven't seen yet, and it's working for them. But potentially that's something that Mouse could be diving into, but they're actually being throttled because of this almost lack of CP laners that Tricky can pull out here.
Yeah, it's definitely something that Tricky should work on going forward. Will we get a steal here on this Elder Triad, though? Drifting Dark's down, Dowsy.
They may just look for the kill, potentially, but Justman's doing a fantastic job of making sure Riku Meza can't stay in his Drifting Dark. Doesn't matter, it does go over to the side of Dynasty. Justman being chased, I'm the Doom, Riku Meza trying to find the kill. Fights on all ends, but Tricky's trying to get in, looking for an afterburn over the wall. Justman will go down. First blood goes over to the side of Dynasty. Second as well, Riku Meza picks up the Scarf and just leaves Tricky trying to secure this camp. Able to get it, will piece on out with the afterburn. Escape. 2 kills to Dynasty. What a fantastic start.
Yeah, definitely a good start for them off the back of that last game. However, I do believe they picked up the first blood last game as well, and it did not end up working out well for them. So we'll have to see. Obviously, the Glaive isn't quite the hyper carry that the Vox is for Tricky. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to capitalize on here. I think Glaive handles pretty well into both Samuel and Blackfeather through most parts of the game. And I'm the Doom on this Scarf can definitely be a huge advantage with the Spitfires being able to ramp up the Broken Myth stack. So we'll just have to see, but is Rikumeza looking to make maybe another aggressive rotation here?
Yeah, right now, in this early game, Rikumeza and Mowgli have so much power. They're looking to try and abuse that against I'm the Doom and Just Man. Not quite able to find the tree, and it does go over to I'm the Doom. Drifting Dark, not quite followed up by Rikumeza, so Dynasty going to fall back here. They've got themselves a slight gold lead just through to some of the CS and the kills that they have here, but it's nothing huge just yet. Really going to have to convert it into a much more tangible lead if they want to take over this game.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for them, though, because Samuel will take some time to scale up, so the fact that he was able to get a kill as well as steal away that Elder Treant is definitely huge for the side of Dynasty. PT Lamb looking to work into the Sorrow Blade for his first item, looking for that raw damage. Obviously, will give the additional % of health execute going that weapon route. So that can be a huge benefit for this team. If Rikumeza is able to get some good damage down and PT Lamb's able to follow it up with an execute, that would be the most ideal situation. But then it's going to be very difficult with I'm the Doom throwing out these Spitfires and Goops.
Artillery from afar really tests the Samuel. A Goop pushing him away from his Drifting Dark. The Grace clearly can do the same, as can the Glaive. Rikumeza is a fantastic Samuel, though, and Samuel's a hero that we've kind of seen not prioritized on 2.8, but slowly, surely seeming to creep back into the meta. Really excited to see him back on the meta, but whether or not it's a win for Dynasty with the Samuel is still to be unanswered.
Yeah, it is to be unanswered, but I think Rikumeza overall, as he came onto this roster, I think a lot of people may have had some questions at first, but I think he really made a outstanding performance last season. So overall, I think Rikumeza should be able to handle this pretty well on the Samuel. He has that Frostburn completed as well as level 6, so Oblivion is online as they now rotate up and try to find some damage on Tricky.
Certainly do. Tricky, afterburns away. I'm the Doom. Throws out that Goop, and Just Man's putting a lot of pressure down, but here comes the Drifting Dark. Rikumeza with the Frostburn can slow. Just Man the main target. The Malice of Verdict's finding a little bit of damage, but not enough really at this point. Dynasty do have Fountain, as does Just Man. The range coming out of the Scarf really holding them back, and Rikumeza struggling to heal at the, regen his energy quick enough to have super impact. He's going to get afterburned away, but Tricky maybe overcommits. Great knock on to Just Man, sleeps him. Mowgli now in a Goop will have to pop his Fountain. Fountain popped to both sides. Now struggling under this artillery fire coming out of Rikumeza. He still has the healing flask if he wants the energy. The Drifting Dark coming up in 5 seconds. An Impale connects. Tricky dead. There's another kill, and Just Man may just go down as well. Mowgli able to escape the turret. It's just going to be one for now. Dynasty going to push this back into the turret and try and make Tricky lose out on some CS.
Yeah, and that's the best option for them. They might even actually have enough damage to take it, as I'm the Doom is very low on both health and energy, so 3 kills and first turret going over to the side of Dynasty. This is a really good start for them, but we do also have to make note that Rikumeza's power spike does come quite a substantial time earlier, and the Scarf, who really needs to get to that third offensive item before he's really able to be that hyper carry. And he's actually going with the Shatter Glass first, Dyansty, so that's a little interesting to me. Opting out of that utility for more raw damage. I think this has its ups and downs, but with Blackfeather wanting to get onto that backline, I think the slow is definitely something that you want to have.
Yeah, Frostburn onto Blackfeather is very difficult to make use of. You can understand maybe going Shadow Glass, but Tricky here taking so much a poke. That's the advantage right there. A single Spitfiring Group gonna shred your health. I would have more thought that the Frostburn is more useful into Rikumeza, if anything, but I don't know. I'm the Doom loves his Shadow Glass, that's for sure.
He absolutely does. He absolutely does. And, you know, it actually will work pretty well into Riku Meza if, you know, Glaive is able to come in, get an afterburn, and put Riku Meza on the front line. Crystal Sentry started up, and they're taking a lot of damage, Dowsy.
Yeah, not enough. Mowgli able to escape. I'm the Doom places the group under the Crystal Sentry. Thought he was helping Dynasty there. Of course, he can't damage his own. 3-0, 3,000 or 2,000 gold lead for Dynasty at this point, and a lot of early game aggression coming out of them. Mowgli able to disengage. Spitfire group does connect to PT Lamb. Gonna have to get some shielding online. Dynasty, do they really want the fight is the question. Already chunked PT Lamb down to half. I don't think they do.
No, I definitely don't think you look for a fight at this point. I think specifically I'm the Doom needs to get a couple more items before he's horribly useful, but the gold mine has started up right in front of Mowgli.
Ooh, this lands, he's just able to
interesting
disengage
call.
it by himself.
Yeah, well, I think the fear is Mowgli was there, they had vision, the gold mine was still very healthy, so it would have given Vainglory Lamb forward, but that just results in now Dynasty starting it up. It is down to half. Drifting Dark is used. Will they be able to secure this?
Goes out, doesn't put anyone to sleep. It looks like it's going to get stolen. No, secured by PT Lamb, but here comes the Dragon's Breath. Bounce it, going to be used to keep everyone on Dynasty alive. The Spitfire doesn't connect this time. With no Frostburn, no one is getting slowed by that Dragon's Breath. Mouz can't chase up, and Dynasty going to escape with even more gold in their pockets.
Yeah, raw damage does not help you if you do not stay in range to get that damage down, and that's really what we saw in that last fight is, you know, if there was a Frostburn, they might have been able to hold somebody up just enough to get a kill, but they were unfortunately unable to, and now with the rotation up from Dynasty, they're not going to be able to get any damage down on this turret either. Drifting Dark is down, looking to help clear out this wave. Overall, you know, we do have the Poison Shiv now on PT Lamb, so he does offer some additional utility to the team. He will provide some additional sustain to himself, as well as reduce some of the healing from both the Fountain and the Divine Interventions coming out of Just Man. The Poison Shiv is also complete for Tricky as well. Maybe not quite as effective, or at least gold effective, as PT Lamb's Poison Shiv, because there's no additional healing for the most part that comes out of the side of Dynasty. But we'll just have to see what comes out here as Lance is coming in for an impale.
Yep, Giffian will connect. That goop, very scary, cannot cross it. Dynasty in lead and in control of the momentum. Mouz playing a careful game, walking on eggshells. Dynasty making these aggressive moves. The Crystal Sentry once more going to be the focus of them. I'm the Doom with Tricky going to start moving down. That Crystal Sentry is already dead. Tricky finds a good afterburn, but the Dragon's Breath really doing nothing at this point, and the Massive Verdict doing so much work. PT Lamb on top of Tricky, trying to find the kill. Divine Intervention keeps him alive, but he may go down nonetheless. There's a stun on time, the Doom in the background, and Tricky will go down to PT Lamb. Currently Just Man trying to escape, and I'm the Doom trying to provide assistance from the wall, but it just does nothing. It's a double for PT Lamb. I'm the Doom, last man standing, gonna have his jungle stolen by Riku Meza. Holy moly, Dynasty completely in control.
Yeah, Dynasty really taking control, and as we get into that replay, we see that the Crystal Sentry was obviously dropped before Mouz could even react. Dragon's Breath is wound up, but it is forced back by the Oblivion, and just like that, that entire ultimate has gone to waste. An intervention comes through on Tricky, but it's not quite enough. As PT Lamb comes in, finds one kill, and is able to easily find a second kill on Grace once the glaive is down. So overall, a good trade out there for Dynasty. That execute damage coming in through strong from PT Lamb.
Man, right now, I'm the Doom has just sauce, no ketchup denominate. You need that ketchup sometimes, the Frostburn slow. But he's gone for just raw sauce, raw damage, and it's just not working out. I'm down with the kids denominate. I know dank memes when I see them. Currently, Dynasty, the dankest of them all. 6,000 gold in the lead, just about. Currently, not really an opening for Mouz to get back into this game.
Yeah, not a huge opening. Their one window will come when I'm the Doom gets the Broken Myth and the Eve of Harvest online. It'd be interesting to see if he goes into the 4 offensive item as a jungle scarf. Obviously, there's not as much gold in the jungle, which can make that a pretty difficult feat to pull off. We're 12 minutes into the game with only one tier 3 for I'm the Doom. He almost has the gold in his pocket to get that broken myth. Not quite there yet. So he will take the opportunity of the recall now and, you know, look to get some shopping done. Obviously, again, not quite enough gold yet.
Ticking away.
Time wasted sitting here waiting. Yeah,
There it is.
He does have it now, so that is key. But you know, that was a lot of time recalled where he is losing out now on potential jungle, potential ambient lane farm. But that will help them out in the next fight if Scarf is able to get some good poke down before it initiates. And there's already a Spitfire onto Mowgli.
Yes, certainly is. 1 stack, but a Crystal Sentry started up. 2 stacks and there's that minion candy on Just Man. Not quite finding enough. Peachy Lamb's going to get knocked back. Oblivion, though, puts I'm the Doom asleep. Tricky isolated. And Rikameza, 6 broken myth stacks, scaring Mouse backwards. A steal, almost, you could say, in the jungle for Dynasty. That Crystal Sentry is eliminated.
Yeah, Crystal Sentry being eliminated at 13 minutes is huge for the side of Dynasty. Again, they've done their homework. They've done the job of pushing in the enemy's objectives every opportunity they get. They are only up 1 turret right now, but as you mentioned, that Crystal Sentry completely dead all 3 lives. They have some gold mines under their belt to accommodate this 5,000 gold lead they have right now. Frostburn and Broken Myth available for Rikameza. Scatterglass and Broken Myth available for I'm the Doom. I think the utility coming out of Rikameza just helps them so much. Will we see a good engage come out here, though?
Turret does go down, but what are they going to lose for it is the question. PT Lamb onto Tricky, but oh my gosh, the damage on Tricky Lamb's huge. They're looking to turn the fight. Divine Adventure will come through. I'm the Doom stacking up. Dragon's Breath comes out. He blocks the Oblivion, but he gets impaled. And Rikameza wants to make quick work of this Scarf. A double kill to PT Lamb's Black Feather. 7-0 to Dynasty, and they're going to move into the lane to take this tier 2.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they should be able to. They have the damage, they have the minion wave to do so, and with Just Man alive, there's just nothing the side of Mouse can do here. 7-0 lead for them right now. They're still up 1 turret, as well as up a pretty sizable amount of gold, working on a 7,000 gold lead in their favor, as Rikameza is getting closer and closer to that Eve of Harvest. And the Doom is struggling to keep up at this point. He's only down 10 CS, but he's down a lot more in gold thanks to the objective pushing that has come out of the rotations of Dynasty. PT Lamb 6-0 right now as the Kraken spawns. Breaking Point is complete, Aegis is complete, and the Metal Jacket is ready to go for him. Blackfeather is at a very scary point in his build.
Oh, certainly is. All he has to do is upgrade his boots, and he's sitting only 200 gold away from being able to do that as well. If he wanted to go for the journeys, that is. Scary thought for Mouse. They have crumbled here in game 2. I can hear those typewriters clickety-clacking at the moment. Denomine and Mowgli powering up on the backside as well. The Kraken, she's spawned. Looks like Dynasty are going to start it up and force Mouse to come to them.
Yeah, absolutely a good opportunity because they've been winning the fights so demandingly. With the health they have, here we go.
It's going to be tricky engaging, but can he escape? Look at the damage coming out of this. Samuel, oh my goodness, the Oblivion puts the Scarf to sleep, and that's going to be PT Lamb picking up 1, Rikameza a second. Just Man will shut down the Black Feather, get the first point on the board for the side of Mouse, but he will just meet his demise at the hands of a Samuel. An ace comes through for Dynasty, a Kraken to be taken.
A Kraken to be taken, as well as that Ace Wave will likely get a huge chunk of damage down on that turret. Only 9 seconds for I'm the Doom to be back up. So we ended a good stun coming through out of Mowgli. It just wasn't quite enough. Tricky was able to find a lot of damage, but was forced out of the fight very early. As you mentioned, the Oblivion stopping the Dragon's Fire. They are able to find a second kill, but it is Just Man finding PT Lamb. And overall, a 2-for-1 trade in this 10-1 game. Kraken, it's just a second away from being taken now.
Yeah, Rikameza will be able to secure that as PT Lamb rejoins his team. And with 5,000 gold in the lead and a Kraken to march down the lane, the last hurrah for Mouse is now. I'm the Doom has that broken Myth with the Shatter Glass, but there is no Eve of Harvest. He's running out of energy in fights. Tricky, 3 damage items, but the defensives against this Samuel are just not there, and he's whittling away to the Malice and Verdict combo. And Mowgli on this Lance has been such a carry threat. With the Echo in hand, will be providing so much CC. Mouz gonna struggle to hold on to their space. This choke point turret gonna fall as the Kraken hits it. That's a stun onto Tricky as well. This is where it all starts for Mouz. If they want to turn this game around, it has to be now. But the Rickameza moving on in with his broken Myth stacking. Mouz going to look for Mowgli here, and Impale does miss. Dragon's Breath will come out. Oblivion gets blocked up this time. Mowgli going to fall. Does he use the Fountain? Yes, he does. Now Dynasty have to run away. PT Lamb wanted to get on top of Tricky, but the Divine Intervention baits them in. PT Lamb should be able to escape. Just Men will dive forward. The Kraken finds 1 turret. Will Tricky go over the wall? He does. Can he find any damage is the question. Rickameza could just kill him here. He gets the healing camp for himself. This turret should be able to survive to dominate.
Yeah, turret will survive. That is only a very, very hurt turret standing on the Mouz side of the base. They were able to find a kill onto Mowgli, but the gold lead still pretty sizably in the favor of Dynasty at this point, as well as obviously if they're able to find one more fight, they can just push in for the victory. We'll have to see how the positioning works through in this next one. PT Lamb has the gold in pocket to upgrade those boots. Interesting to see if he goes with the Journey boots or the War Treads. I feel like the additional engagement would be very useful for them. There it is. War Treads purchased. Has the gold to reinfuse here very, very shortly. Rickameza picking up a new infusion for himself as he steps off the platform. Looking in a really good spot right now for the side of Dynasty, as I'm the Doom does have a level 12 infusion in his pocket, but Justman is sitting on only about half of an infusion and does not have the gold to reinfuse, so that will definitely affect some of the healing he's able to put out with that Divine Intervention. Not level 12 yet either, Dowsy, so a little bit longer cooldown and not quite the Power Punch healing.
Certainly true. Won't have it for this fight either. He's stunned up Echo Use, trying to take away the healing straight up from this Grace. It's going to be Tricky moving on in. There's the Oblivion blocked up once more. PT Lamb onto Tricky and the Dragon's Breath to try and dissuade Dynasty from fighting. I'm the Doom now looking to escape, but a lot of damage does connect. 9 broken Myth stacks on this Samuel, and then charging forward. PT Lamb falls though. It's all over. Mouz have lost their damage source, and Rickameza, whilst he has it, doesn't have energy to really continue up. It's about getting Mowgli and Rickameza out. Mouz, I don't think, have the range to chase up, but the Kraken, she's respawned.
Yeah, and with the Kraken on board, that is a huge objective to lose out on now with PT Lamb down for 20 seconds, and I'm the Doom on Scarf, so good at taking objectives. This is likely going to get started up. And Rickameza being pretty low on energy himself is an interesting point, because as Tricky is rotating over, if they commit a little too far, they could definitely lose out on more than just a Kraken here. Here we go.
Does engage. Tricky though. Looking for Rickameza. Kraken at half HP. Just Men very low. PT Lamb has respawned but won't be here in time. It's all on Rickameza, and Mowgli is still this Kraken. They go in for it, but it is secured. Just Men almost goes down. Oh, the second Malice and Verdict hits the Kraken. And Just Men will be able to escape here. Mouz backporting instantly. Dynasty gonna have a lot of time on this Kraken to whistle it away.
Yeah, they will have a lot of time as Justman was forced so low in that last fight. And it is already almost down to half health here, Dowsy, and that's not looking good for the hopes of Mouz as they rotate up. They do catch out Mowgli though.
Yeah, Mowgli's in a bad position here, but it is drawing the attention of Mouz away from the Kraken, and Mowgli will be able to survive. Kraken almost dead by the time it reaches the turret here. Turret probably will go down. It's going to be an engage coming out of Tricky. It's a lot of damage onto Rickameza, walking into the Dragon's Breath, falling very low. He will go down. Can they find a return kill is the question. Coming out of the side of Dynasty. This Kraken almost dead, but it's going to be a fantastic Holy Nova into an afterburn, and PT Lamb may lose his life. Mouz suddenly turning this game around. A single turret will be their only reward. Is a bit of a win for them though. Taking control is a place they want to be.
Yeah, and when, we got to look, the Scarf is at that 3-item spike. We are at that point in the game that Scarf's win rate just substantially jumps up. And he also is working into some defense of his own So it will be interesting to see how this next fight goes. Obviously, the next fight could be game deciding as these death timers are getting so incredibly long, Dyansty. Rukumeza about to be up. Looks like he's working into Halcyon chargers of his own. Some additional cooldown for the Drifting Dark and Oblivion would be very helpful for their team. But if they continue to allow I'm the Doom to ramp up and fight the way he has, it is going to be more and more difficult for them to win as the game goes on. As PT Lamb is just getting destroyed when he goes in too far against this Grace and Glaive, who have so much CC, not enough Rose offensive charges to get through safely, and then obviously Scarf with the Spitfires and Goops can really ramp up the damage quickly.
For Mouz currently, I feel like the person keeping him in this game has to be Justman and the Divine Interventions. Keeping either Tricky or I'm the Doom alive when Dynasty hard engage, super hard to deal with. So what is the win condition? How do Dynasty shut down this immense amount of healing that Justman's able to output?
They have to force something out early before Scarf is able to build up a lot of stacks, and taking a Spitfire to the face is not how you're going to do that. So if they're able to force anything out of Justman, a Fountain, a Divine Intervention on himself, then it's going to give them an opportunity to follow up on the fight very quickly. The entire side of Dynasty at this point is infused. I'm the Doom is not, and Justman's just ran out, so they should look to find a fight here before they get a chance to shop. But they are going to be close enough to their base that it is going to dissuade a pursuit from Dynasty. And that's going to give another breath of life here now for the side of Mouz, as here comes Justman. Will they be able to find anything off this?
Yeah, it's going in. Going to look for that Holy Nova onto them. Tricky taking damage, PT Lamb looking to get onto the Scarf, pushing I'm the Doom very far out of the fight, and Mouz truly just disengaging at this point. Broken Myth stacks have reset for Rukumeza, but I'm the Doom sitting on 5. Mouz trying to get into range, but looks like Dynasty have just about got enough distance in between them and Mouz to be able to let those Broken Myth stacks die. The Kraken's respawned as well. That's a Slumbering Husk picked up for Mowgli as his final item here. What do you make of that, Denomine?
I think it's actually really interesting. Now, it does give him a higher amount of health pool, but it is not going to effectively give him any additional use towards the team. And, you know, being the captain against a Glaive and a Scarf, that Slumbering Husk might not get popped very quickly. But PT Lamb now has switched out an item and picked up the Bone Saw, so that is an absolute huge moment here as we have the armor ramping up for the side of Mouz, and Justman is taking a lot of damage.
Wow, look at the damage onto Justman. The Bone Saw just shredding through him. Divine Intervention will come through. It is going to be this Grace focus down, taken on out. Rukumeza very low, a Spitfire connects. Currently, it's I'm the Doom, though, struggling to escape PT Lamb. Very low. But Tricky's coming back. I don't think he has the energy for an afterburn. He does not. He just has to get in range of Mowgli, find that single auto attack, but he cannot get in range. Holy moly, everyone's so low. Everyone going to backport, it seems, as well.
Yeah, everybody recalling to base. It would look really good for the side of Dynasty there for a minute. They were able to force Justman down very early on in the fight. He did not use any of the healing on his teammates because he was just taking so much of it right up front. Echo didn't even get a chance to be used in that last fight. So overall, this is now a Kraken started up for Dynasty, but is a aware Mouz Sports here ready to go as soon as that Kraken gets dropped low enough. If they can get a steal, it'd be really good for Mouz at this point in the game.
Mowgli doesn't have room for flares. There's a single flare on Rukumeza currently to provide vision. So it's a steal coming through for Tricky. Oh my goodness, Mouz find the steal into the Kraken, and PT Lamb is in trouble. Oblivion will go out. He manages to escape it. Dragon's Breath ramping up, but PT Lamb's found the kill. Mowgli trying to keep I'm the Doom away. Here comes the Mouse and Verdicts, but they've lost PT Lamb. I'm the Doom dancing around. Spitfire onto Mowgli. Doesn't quite find its target, but if they can get on top of him, then this is dead. Journey Boots purchase for the Scarf. Here comes I'm the Doom to find the kill onto Mowgli, and Mowgli cannot escape. His revenge story running thin as it's just Rukumeza left alive. He gets the backport back to base, but 35 seconds, him and a Kraken. And here comes Mouz to try and get Game 2's win.
Yeah, Mouz is in a good spot right now, but as these turrets get destroyed, it will accelerate the death timers. Only 18 seconds left on PT Lamb. So it's going to be very, very risky for Mouz to stay. Oblivion is going to lock Grace up. And that is going to help him hold this off, as now Mouz is forced out. And it should be Dynasty stopping this Kraken now. I think they might be able to get it down before the turret dies, so that is going to be 1 turret to 1 turret for each respectable side. It's going to be very, very close, Dowsy.
This is an insane game 2 here. 27 minutes, 30 seconds on the board. Both these teams sitting just a hair piece away from finding a win here. Dynasty need it. Mouz want it. Who wants it more, I guess, is the question at this point. Mistakes have been made, and this greedy build from Mowgli with no contraption in inventory, there is just literally no vision going to be ever available for Dynasty. Mouz are in the dark at the moment. How they use that dark is important, but here comes the engage from Dynasty, looking to get on top of this Scarf. They're able to get him away. That's the Oblivion going out, missing, and Rikomeza taking so much damage on the back line. Pops the Madison Verdict. Here comes the Drifting Dark as well. The Dragon's Breath disengage. PT Lamb trying to find the kill into Tricky. Tricky gets another heal. Tricky in a 1v1, but it's going to be Tricky going down as Rikomeza joins. Justman isolated in the middle of it all as Dynasty try and take him and find the kill. Impale connects. Mowgli wants the kill, but he gets taken on down, and now the doom has to run from PT and Rikomeza. Rikomeza charging forward, looking for the kill. This Scarf continuing to run as fast as he can, because if he can buy time, then the game is not over just yet. If he can continue to run, then maybe he saves it all for Mouz. They've got on top of him. He cannot escape. He will fall. And the ace comes through for Dynasty.
Ace comes through for Dynasty, and there is 18 seconds left on Tricky, 20 seconds left on Justman, as this ace wave is pushing up under this very hurt turret. If Dynasty plays this correctly, they should be able to end the game, but they need to get in here fast, Dowsy. The turret is down, but Tricky and Justman are now up.
Respawned. This is it. Denominate. Can Dynasty finish the Vein Crystal, or will Tricky and Justman keep it alive? No. Dynasty will take this second game. It's tied 1 apiece, and the revenge story for Mowgli grows ever stronger.
You were calling it on that whole typewriter scenario there. We have Dynasty taking game number 2. You did call it, so now getting into game number 3. We'll see if the Prophet Dowsy can pull it together. Dowsy, getting excited for game number 3 now.
I am certainly getting excited, and I'm sure the same can be said about our analysts. So let's hear from them about this Dynasty win.
What a game! What a game coming out from these guys. 30-minute slog, back and forth, especially in the late game. Those team fights were absolutely... I don't even know where to start with this one. That was a spectacle, honestly.
It was such a good game. I mean, back and forth, like he was saying. I mean, it was really completely up in the air. It came down to just the minutiae. Minute. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. The minute execution in these team fights, and very small things ended up being the difference.
Yeah, I mean, the Kraken steals, the back and forth, but also the mistakes back and forth from both teams throwing their leads when they had them. There's a lot to talk about this game. Let's break it down much.
Yeah, let's go right back to the start of the game of like how this all started off, because Dynasty were doing a great job when they were taking the first turret.
Exactly. So Dynasty did a great job this game over last game, playing aggressive, getting advantages that they need, and targeting objectives after they got those advantages. We see here they pick up the kill on Glaive, they start focusing turrets, they start focusing crystal miners, gold miners. They're snowballing correctly. This is the first time we see it from a European team where a snowball happens so cleanly the way Dynasty did it, and that's what you gotta give them props to. The only problem is they weren't able to close out before Mousesport's composition came back with their superior scaling.
Yeah, and this was what we wanted to see from them. After game number 1, we talked about the fact that we want to see this team be more aggressive, be more just in the lane, just shoving the lane, take those objectives when you have this range advantage, and that's what they were finally able to do here.
Yeah, and we saw the game started to kind of break open. We started to see some more team fights once we got a little bit later on. Let's take a look at a replay from around 15 minutes into the game, which was when this game started to break open, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, this is when the Scarf started to show signs of coming online. Obviously, this time around didn't quite work out the way that they would have liked, but this is when there was just the crack in the armor, I guess, for the side of Dynasty was losing out PT Lamb in this fight, but the fight taking a lot longer than the previous skirmishes we had seen. And long, drawn-out fights, if Scarf is alive, benefit a Scarf fully. So that was why this was one of those kind of the first signs of things to come.
Yeah, I mean, the same can be said for the Samuel pick as well, though. We have another fight that happened around 24 minutes into the game, and this was where things really started to even up, Zoro.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here, Scarf coming online. Now he has his Broken Myth, his Eve with the Shattered Glass. So they're doing really well. The thing Mouse did very effectively, too, is they focused the front line together rather than splitting their damage. We mentioned in the draft Blackfeather, if he dives on Scarf, Samuel will not be able to follow up with the damage. So they just focused the front line, and it worked very well for them when they were ahead, but it started not working well later on until, you know, the Mouse Sport started splitting up. And the thing is, Scarf going for only 3 offensive items is not a very smart choice, because you have a Glaive, you have a Grace that's gonna be able to heal you and protect you. You need to be the damage outputter on your team that's gonna be able to just carry through and clean up. 3 offensive items only, not a very smart choice.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of these fights going back and forth. We saw a lot of kind of battles going on. And then if that wasn't exciting enough, we also had a Kraken steal that came through in this game. And this was a dangerous moment for Mouse, but goes on in Tricky being the absolute hero for his team.
Yeah, and a beautiful reflex block there to prevent himself from getting impaled, and allowed now Tricky and I'm the Doom to turn this fight around. Even though Tricky falls very early, they did so much work to get PT Lamb down low that once Grace shows up, it's just a cleanup for I'm the Doom on this Scarf. And he was able to, even though he didn't get the ace, was able to just draw them out long enough and extend this so that they were able to at least get a little bit of work done with this Kraken and nearly have an opportunity to take the game.
Yeah, they tried to push it on forwards, they didn't quite have the momentum to actually finish the game, and a lot of that was the fact that their carry was dead. They only had the Scarf to push on in with, and the death timers were counting down, so they ran out of time, and then we had one final fight, which rounded things out, and it meant that Dynasty could take it in the end.
Yeah, at this team fight, we see the Oblivion being used way too early, so that when Scarf uses ultimate, nothing cancels it. Still, though, the Grace heal, the first one goes onto Scarf, which does nothing because Scarf was already full health. The second Grace heal, though, goes on Glaive, does a good job, but it's not enough at that point. Scarf ends up being the only survivor. He tries to clean up and tries to get the triple kill at the end of it, but he falls to Samuel and Blackfeather after they chase him.
Yeah, small, crucial mistake from the side of Mouse, and Justin, I'm sure, is going to be kicking himself for that one. Scarf wasn't under attack, so the damage reduction didn't do anything, was already full health. If that first heal goes onto Tricky and he gets double Grace healed in that team fight, this probably ends up going the other way, because you saw how low they were able to get the members of Dynasty before Tricky went down off of just one Grace heal.
All right. We have to start talking about this next game, because obviously there was a lot to dig into in that one. We're kind of running out of time, so let's talk about this next draft. We kind of criticized the Dynasty draft coming into this one. After the Ryan ban and the Samuel pick, we were a little bit confused. What do they need to change up coming into this one? Or I guess they don't necessarily need to change things up. They just won the game. We can't be too harsh on them. But what is the expectation coming into this one? Are we going to see these late game kind of CP majors coming through once again, or are we going to see things changed up once more? I
mean, I think it's a lot safer for the European teams that are playing right now, especially if you're not closing out the game. Europe, you need to make sure if you have a stronger early game composition, get the lead, but make sure you close out cleanly, because the composition that has better scaling, once it catches up, is going to become stronger. And late game, if you have a 4K lead, a 5K lead, that's not going to matter as much, because everyone is going to have full items. So your lead is going to be completely nullified. So you either pick a strong early game comp and a mid game comp and you get an advantages and close out, or go for the safer pick by picking a team fighting composition, later scaling composition.
This is already an interesting draft coming on through. Krull the first ban, Blackfeather the second ban, and then a Celeste first pick. So off to a kind of off the wall start here.
Yeah, a little bit just in terms of what we've been seeing of late, but Grace going to be available, gets first pick there by Dynasty. Now they can choose to ban away the Catherine, which they absolutely should. We've already seen what happens if you don't ban away the Catherine. You give over the Catherine Batiste. Catherine Batiste Celeste triple stun, tons of CC come through, but they are going to do the smart thing here and ban the cap.
I really hope Mouz Sports bans Idris here. If they ban Idris, they almost they have a huge power pick with the Celeste and the lane without giving anything back to Dynasty, because Blackfeather is not on the table, Cruel not on the table, and Idris would not be. Fox and Kestrel would be the next picks, or the Glaive for PT Lamb, and all of them don't work great against Celeste late game. So I really want to see that Idris ban coming through here.
I mean, the other option is also Scarf that would still be on the table. That's one of the carries we saw last game. That obviously came out of the side of Mouz Sports. So we'll see how this one's going to pan out. Idris will be banned like you predicted, and now Dynasty have to decide where they want to go with this composition. Obviously, Grace, very open pick. You can kind of take that into whatever composition you need.
And you almost feel like a Scarf is going to be mandatory against the Celeste. You need something that can try and combat the Celeste. Samuel isn't going to get the job done. A Crystal Kestrel isn't going to get the job done. So they are going to go with the Vox, which they still could go for the Scarf, but right now there is nothing on the side of Dynasty, to me, that says that they can deal with a Celeste.
Celeste or Mouz Sports can go for the Finn here. Justman is not one of his favorite characters or heroes, but it's extremely strong, especially combined with the Celeste. Why this is so strong is because it has extremely long range, extremely tanky frontline with the Finn, and at the same time very strong backline damage with the Celeste. We know how much she outputs. As far as the junglers, they can go for Glaive. That would be a really good pick because it synergizes well with the early game ganking potential, the CC. It makes your jungler weapon power, so they could go for that. Other than that, Dynasty, they could still pick up Fortress last. This is a composition we saw in the first matchup we had with Fnatic versus G2. The Vox Fortress Grace, extremely strong composition, and actually works well against Finn because Finn can't run away. He's extremely immobile, so if you pop the wolves, if you just focus him afterwards, you can kill him fairly fast and he can't escape. So let's see what Mouz Sports ends up going for. They can take their time. They do go for the Glaive, and that's the composition that I predicted. It's extremely strong. Celeste, Glaive, Finn, they have strong early game. You can't really pressure them because Glaive weapon power can hold off and can gank, and at the same time scales really well.
Yeah, and you were talking about Justman's Finn a little bit earlier. It was actually one of his most played heroes last season. So he played it in 8 of their games. I think the only captain that he played more was Arden with 10 games. So it's definitely one of their picks that they fell back to when things like the Lyra and the Arden were taken away from them. So definitely going to have a little bit of comfort and familiarity there. And now Dynasty, this is looking like a rough draft for them. They have not too many options available that are going to be able to deal with a Celeste without being incredibly vulnerable to a Glaive.
Taka comes on through. We saw Rukumeza playing this last week. We know that Rukumeza, he's been amping up the aggression that we've been seeing coming out from him. We'll see whether the Taka is going to be able to dive onto this Celeste, but against a Finn and a Glaive, that's a lot of appeal for the side of Mouz Sports.
I definitely like Mouz Sports' composition overall better because they can scale and they can play a lot better as a team. The only thing is they can't split up. If they stay together as a unit in the team fights, Taka, Vox can't do too much, but if they split up, Taka is great at assassinating characters.
Yeah, and especially early on, Taka's going to have great strength against the Celeste, but there's also going to be a Finn likely sticking around in the lane all the time, and that all of a sudden makes the Celeste a lot more difficult to just assassinate.
I'm curious to see how Dynasty are going to play this one out. We were praising their early game. Yeah, in the last series, in the last game, sorry, that we just saw, they were being proactive. They were taking objective off every single kill that they would get. We'll see whether they can do the same here because, with something like Attacker, you have to be aggressive. We have to see them being the proactive team. It's time to jump on into this game. It's time to head into the third game of this series. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you are supporting. It's Mouz going up against Dynasty. It's time to get on into this game.
Ultimatum of the series denominator. Mowgli up against his former teammates, looking for his revenge. They're looking for their win. They're looking to make Mouz the European champions that they can be once more. We'll have to find out where this story goes.
Yeah, it can be interesting to see if Mowgli gets that Hollywood ending you were talking about earlier. Obviously, a lot is on the line, as dropping on day number 1, only getting 1 point is not the most ideal situation. Making it into day 2 gives you so much more opportunity, but Mowgli being very aggressive.
Finds the treant for himself, steals that one away. That's definitely going to hurt the experience on Mouz starting off. Mouz want to fight over this center, and it could be a disastrous point for them. Does look like they are going to give it up to Dynasty, knowing that they don't have level 2 and Dynasty can have level 2. Makes a lot of sense to not even fight for it.
Yeah, it absolutely does, and you know, Glaive now only being level 1 as well as Tricky only being level 1. This is definitely not the comfortable position that you want to be in if you are the side of Mouz. But obviously, the combination of Celeste, Glaive, and Finn can be incredibly devastating in the late game. We've seen some pretty awesome interactions with Finns with the hooks, and to do some good triple core collapses would be ideal.
Yeah, certainly. Have to see how Justman does execute his Finn. He has been a shining star of Finn play through his competitive career. Definitely excited to see that. But we're talking about hero picks that you kind of associate with a player. Then I have to say, Rikumeza's Tucker is always exciting to see for me. Always able to take over control of games. We saw it last week from Dynasty. I believe the game they won against, I want to say, SK. Maybe it wasn't a win, but it was a very close start for them. Was off the back of Rikumeza's Tucker play, and right now on this Tucker, he hasn't been able to find any influence yet to nominate, but he's only just getting started.
Yeah, he may not have found any influence yet, but Mowgli sure did. Now, is PT Lamb trying to force up this wave? It'll be interesting to see if PT Lamb goes a similar build to what we've seen out of Tricky. Obviously, we've seen how devastating it can be and how quickly it ramps up that breaking point. So it'll all come down to, you know, what the positioning of Celeste ends up being. Obviously, the zoning potential is absolutely huge, but Taka, one of the better picks into Celeste in the mid game, is looking to make maybe a little bit of an invade now.
Yep, currently just looking to take away this Treant, though Tricky's here. Does go over to Rikumeza, gets the healing, gets the stealth, and he's out scot-free. Perhaps not done yet, though. I'm the Doom going to be taking a huge amount of damage as Tricky's forced to deal with the wave crashing onto his turret. Dynasty just chipping away at the health bars, slowly but surely.
Yeah, and now it is going to be Dynasty working on that Treant. They're going to take it uncontested, going over to Rikumeza, who's now looking to find some further invades here. Celeste is in the lane, but there's no farm back here for him yet. He did get scouted out as well. Ooh, I'm the Doom with a good afterburn to prevent that recall. Important to make note of real quick, Dowsy. This is Tricky on Celeste this time around.
It is. Playing that CP laner for himself.
Gonna prove you wrong.
See how this one does go about. So that's very good into Vox as well.
Yeah, it definitely is, and being in the lane, it is going to be a lot more gold, which is going to accelerate that build into a 4-item mage. But the aggression is not here in the jungle.
They're going to look for a kill. First blood. Rikumeza wants it onto Justman, but we are seeing the rotate come through from the Celeste. Tricky trying to get into position to stop his captain from falling, and Rikumeza may be in trouble. Quibble comes down, PG Lamb joins the fight. Holy Nova knocks up 2 on the Doom. He's in trouble. First blood will go the way of Dynasty, and Justman may fall as well. PG Lamb looking for the kill. The Quibble does a lot of damage, but he does go down. PG Lamb will follow. Crystal Sentry, MVP, a double stun, a double kill. Can he turn a triple? It's Tricky, 1, 2, 3. Looking for it all. Mowgli, can he escape? He cannot. I Am the Doom gets the kill. A 3-2 to Mouz.
First blood. Double kill.
Connection lost.
Crystal Sentry defeated.
right, well, we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but Iraqi Zoro and Tasty Bacon are here to save the day and pick things up where we left off. So, Iraqi Zoro, I mean, this is a game thus far throughout this early game that has been a lot of aggression, but not a whole lot coming from it.
I mean, it's been really interesting so far because Dynasty are trying to play to their win condition by pushing into the jungle with Taka and Grace. They so far haven't found too much, but they did pick up 2 kills earlier. The thing is, they forgot about the Crystal Sentry coming back onto the map, or like the first time coming onto the map around the 4 minutes. Had they remembered that, they would have been able to take the kill and get out.
At the same time, though, they ended up killing the Crystal Sentry there, and they didn't lose any gold. Like, the gold was about 1,000 difference before that skirmish happened, and they still are at about 1,000 gold down, but they took out the Crystal Sentry with one of its lives gone already. So that could actually be something that ends up playing into Dynasty's favor a little bit later on.
Yeah, I mean, the Taka is sitting on an Aftershock and an Infusion. This is very smart because they need to get ahead right now. If they don't, Mouseforce composition is going to outscale Dynasties by a huge margin. Oh, beautiful
nice
collapse.
catch with the core collapse onto Rikumesa underneath the turret. He is going to go down. Nice afterburn coming in from I'm the Doom as well. PT Lamb going to be in trouble. Force the Cord will pull Mowgli back, but using the boots will be able to escape.
This is so good for Mouseforce because this is the point where they are supposed to be weaker, yet still they're actually winning it. After Celeste picks up her level 8, they're going to become so much stronger too. They're deciding to go down. They're going to get a little bit of jungle off of that kill on Taka. This is so great. Mousesports are scaling and they're winning the part of the game that they're supposed to be losing.
Yeah, and once, like you said, once this scales up a little bit later on, once this Celeste has herself that broken myth, Eve of Harvest already completed, going for the Clockwork next, but 4 items Celeste just does so much damage. Rikumesa is not going to be able to make that assassination play any longer, and so it's kind of almost a missed window of opportunity for Dynasty.
He has about 1 minute 30 seconds left on his infusion. If they don't get advantages within that time, they're not going to do very well later on. They're trying to take the gold mine. Mousesports are not recognizing it and so are not defending it. Mousesports needs to act.
They're coming in now. They're not going to get the steal, though. Immense payout towards Dynasty, and immediately they're able to get out. The Solar Storm is just going to delay the recall a little bit there for Rikumesa. Shouldn't be caught here. The flare didn't spot him, and yeah, he's able to get back to base. So the interesting thing that I'm curious about here is going to be the build for Rikumesa. Is he going to go into a tension bow or stick to just crystal? But an afterburn from I'm the Doom onto PT Lamb will get the divine intervention and stay safe under the turret.
I mean, I hope he sticks to the CP. I think he would do a lot better by picking up something like a Broken Myth. The gold mine is a good sign of hope for Dynasty because it gives them 400 gold each as they go on. Now, Mousesports are pressuring the first turret.
Rikumesa playing a risky game there, but just trying to keep Mousesports away, trying to get the turret aggroed onto them. It's exactly what he did. Can he find another opportunity with the rest of Dynasty moving up now? Doesn't look like they're too interested in a hard engage.
The thing is, Dynasty's win condition later on is going to be to dive on Celeste and try to kill her both with Taka and Vox. They're going to need to be on top of her, focusing her, while Grace is on the back line trying to heal whoever is being focused down. That's their win condition, and they needed to have a gold lead advantage to be able to execute it. The fact that they're 500 behind is very not good for them. I expect Mousesports to be able to just continue scaling and become a lot stronger. The turret is being pressured, however, and Taka is on Finn.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. No, they move away from the turret. Why would you move away from the turret? Oh, it was a great opportunity for Dynasty to just get a ton of damage down on the turret. Instead, it takes barely even a sliver of health. So, again, just slightly missed opportunities from Dynasty and not being as aggressive on the objectives as they really should be.
Celeste has her Clockwork now too. They can siege this turret endlessly until they get it if they wanted to. Finn is extremely strong, has the fountain, went for a Mellow Jacket to not provide any breaking point stacking to Vox, at least a lot less reduced. And then on the side of Dynasty, their only hope is going to be to get on Celeste. If they can catch her out of position somehow and just be able to dive her, focus her, kill her early on in the team fight, that's how they're gonna what they're gonna need to do to win the team fight.
Yeah, Mowgli had a nice crucible on the Forced Accord. He's gonna be going in a bit here, but there's the rest of the team. They don't want to engage. Helio's just so strong against Takatu, being able to scout out those brushes and make sure he's not hiding in them or find him if he is. exactly what Mouz is focusing on, just making sure they have vision of Rikumeza as he tries to sneak around, putting out these scout traps, you know, even in very forward positions.
Yeah, Mousesports are taking it very slow. They're not pressuring the turret as hard as they can be. And it's fine for them to do that, just because they will continue being stronger and stronger. They're not going to fall behind.
Well, this could be an engage. Wait for it, comes out. They're diving onto the Celeste. A nice afterburn to keep him safe. Rikumeza, is he going to be able to re-engage? He's too low. Solar Storm going to go a bit wide. Mowgli provides the divine intervention to Rikumeza, but he's already well outside of this fight.
So Dynasty, they have the correct idea. They're trying to dive on Celeste and try to kill her early on in the team fight.
There they go again, jumping right back onto her. They know that there's not too many utilities available. It is a one-for-one trade, however, as Celeste does take down Taka. I'm the Doom with a big afterburn. Will find a second kill for Mouz and a stun. Can they get this third? Force the Cord, gonna pull Mowgli back into the jaws of I'm the Doom, and it is an ace for Mousesports.
What I was trying to say is that it's going to take Dynasty too long to kill Celeste, just because Finn provides such good peeling with his polite company, his quibbles, and his fountain also that he has. He can use to sustain up the Celeste. The thing is, Glaive is going to be able to scale into becoming a threat on the side of Mousesports too, and now Dynasty are going to have to deal with two different carries potentially that they need to kill, and they can only focus one, and it's going to take them so long to kill that one target. This is really not looking good for Dynasty. Now they're 2k behind as well.
Yeah, Mousesports able to find the opportunities a little bit better than Dynasty has been, and as of right now, I mean, pushing in, they're going to be looking for even more opportunities to get onto the Celeste, but they're just not there right now. Now they're just split focusing. Rikumeza kind of just getting any target he can, but not really doing a whole lot of damage with just the aftershock.
I really like the contraption coming out of Just Man 2 on the Finn, because when Taka is going to dive in, you want to be able to pop a flare on top of you so that when he uses his Kaku, you're still able to focus him and that he doesn't escape from being invisible. I really like that pickup. Broken Myth is now completed on Celeste 2. Celeste is huge, and next she's going to be going for the Aegis, and once she gets that, Taka will not be able to kill her no matter what. So again, looking very good from Mousesports. They're trying to approach a little bit. They're trying to focus objectives now. They took the first turret. Gold mine is full. They can try to focus on that. You can see them clearing the vision around the gold mine so that they can have a little bit more pressure and approach it slowly. They're doing a good job.
Yeah, and like you said, once the Aegis is completed for Tricky, you know, Rikumeza is not going to be able to assassinate him. PT Lamb is not going to be able to get close to him when you have a Finn and a Glaive. That Vox just can't get past those two. It's not going to happen unless a crucial mistake comes out from Mousesports. So 14 minutes into this one, you know, even though the gold is still relatively close, considering it is a 7-3 kill lead, this is still starting to look more and more like Mousesports having a big advantage.
And I have to go back to the early game, because this has been the story for most of the European matchups. A team goes for the early game aggression composition, but is not able to get the advantages and close out the game. It's happened last game on the side of Mousesports, and now it's happening again for Dynasty. The only thing is that Gold Mine kicks off.
Gold Miner, is it going to get stolen? It does go over to the side of Dynasty, and now they have a chance. Focusing onto Just Man, but a big Solar Storm onto Mowgli will take him down, and now they can look to just return these kills even further. Pulling them out of the core collapse, maybe not fully intended, but it's not going to matter because the Quibble will provide the stun.
Mousesports end up going for the Gold Mine like we were saying they were planning on doing, but it gets stolen away from them. Only thing is they get an ace, and now they're going to get a turret off of it, so it's not a big loss for them. It's actually a gold advantage that they're gaining from it. Is not as much as they could have had they secured the gold mine, but it's still not bad at all. They're also going to start the Kraken, and if they're able to secure this Kraken, this will probably spell the end of the game for Dynasty, because Mousesports have an extremely strong sieging composition with the Celeste being able to poke and the Finn pull coming through.
Yeah, sort of a cut your losses type of thing. But it sounds like we are going to have the regularly scheduled casters back on board. So, Dowsy and Denominate, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tasty Bacon. Araki Zoro casting hype as well. Very intriguing to hear, and certainly doing a great job, whilst me and Denominate were lost on the internet. Where were we, Denominate? We're just lost in general, I think.
I think we were just kind of out there in limbo, but a Finn pull does get blocked there, Dowsy. No echo either, so Justman's on a pretty sizable cooldown now as Celeste hammering down on this turret.
Yeah, and Dynasty just haven't been able to make their composition work whatsoever. Mouz is just such a strong point to walk on in and finish this all. Crystal Sentry does spawn, they're going to take it down before it gets involved in the fight. And considering the fact that Tricky has his full damage build online and Rickameza can't blow him up, this is almost the end for the side of Dynasty. We do see Rickameza diving onto the Celeste, trying to find the kill. Solar Storm going to go through. Peach Lamb in a bit of trouble, but Rickameza has found the kill on to Tricky. And now and the Doom will fall as well. Mouz, they're looking to turn this, Dynasty are trying to turn this around. The ace does come through. And they are going to be able to take down this Kraken as well. The question is, will they lose their turrets for it? Yes, they will. This Kraken will take them all. Dynasty, a Vein Crystal is the only thing they have left living.
Only a Vein Crystal and a Dream stand between them and a victory here. There are 3 turrets to go, or 5 turrets to go actually still on the enemy's side. So it is not looking good for Dynasty at this point. Pretty insurmountable gold lead, Dowsy. We're pretty much dead even at the 17-minute mark. That's pretty good for Dynasty considering the position that they're in. But, you know, unfortunately we're at that point in the game that Celeste is really just taking off. And Taka is at that point that he's just starting to struggle. But it's a good work here out of Mowgli, clearing up some vision. A lot of damage down.
Breaking out. Look at that, PC Lamb putting the pressure down. Double silence will come through. Rickameza going to dive on top of the Celeste. There's no reflex block. He's looking for the kill, looking to try and take down Tricky, but oh my goodness, the damage has turned around. Mowgli gets the fountain out. Riku dives back in. Tricky dies as well. Dynasty just about surviving, but they're all so low. I'm the Doom. He needs to find a target. Has an afterburn and ready to go. Rickameza, he's not going to go for him. He finds PC Lamb instead. A stun onto Mowgli. It looks like it will be 2 for Doom, and he gets the double. Only Riku left alive, and Dynasty need to keep him alive, but they can't. It's a triple kill, baby, for I'm the Doom, and that's about it.
That is all she wrote for Mouse Sports. Unfortunately, the Dowsy Hollywood ending did not come through for Mowgli, and that is going to be Dynasty falling on day 1. As it will be Mouse Sports moving on. Again, we talked about it earlier. Tricky has been such a good addition to this team. And off the back of a incredibly long team fight there, it is Mouse that comes out on top with just a sliver of health, and I'm the Doom. So Dowsy, that'll be Mouse moving on to our Sunday games.
Certainly will. It'll be top 10 saddest anime deaths for Mowgli. Not quite able to get his redemption story against his former Team Secret pals. Mouse 2-0 in this series, and a very dominating last game to finish this series off. We'll see them tomorrow. Let's throw it back to our desk to reintroduce them. It's Munch and the other guys.
Welcome back to the desk, other guys. My name is Munch.
That was just salty that we took his job for a little bit.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, so what a game, what a series coming out from these two teams. And honestly, the team fights across this entire series have been absolutely incredible to watch, even right down to that final team fight. Just so close to going each way, but it is going to go the way of Mouse in the end. Dynasty's dreams are slashed this week. So let's talk about this game a little bit. We'll start right from the very beginning of the game. We do have a couple of replays going to be coming on through, but talk me through kind of what happened. Obviously, you guys were actually casting this one, so you know it better than anyone.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was really just the fact that they couldn't get onto Tricky effectively enough. They were able to get onto him, get some good damage down, but it just took too long to actually get that kill. That trick, I'm the Doom, was then able to just dish out so much damage as this glaive.
Yeah, and the fact that they weren't able to get ahead early on made it so hard for them to be able to burst down Celeste. This fight is one of the fights that they could, like, had they just killed Celeste and went on to get an objective, they would have been able to snowball a little bit, but that wasn't the case. Finn at this point was already 8, and his quibbles were stunning the entire team. Mouse Sports were able to just scale and play to their win condition.
Yeah, and in that fight, you saw they took so long to take down Tricky that it was 3-on-2, and it ended up being a 1-for-1 trade. and leaving the second member with like a sliver of health, so that Doom was able to come up and just quickly clean that off. And that was kind of the story of this game, was just not being able to take out the Celeste quick enough.
Yeah, and we saw that the game started to slip away from Dynasty a little bit more around the 14-minute mark. We saw another ace coming on through for Mouz.
And another one where this time this gold mine gets stolen, but it was very smart by the side of Mouz to back away from that gold mine, because they knew they didn't actually want to be, taking that extra damage. They knew that the fights were going to be fairly close. You can see Just Man and I'm the Doom extremely low, but able to stay alive long enough because they backed away from the gold mine, allowed them to just reposition themselves the way they needed in that fight so that they couldn't just make that dive onto Celeste.
Yeah, honestly, it felt like the longer this game went on, it was Mouz were just so far ahead that it wasn't even fair fights at that point on. And then we saw Dynasty managing to defend the Kraken push at the end. It was so close to losing the game here. They did manage to hold on.
Yeah, I mean, you see Taka going on Celeste, and at this point, Celeste... So this is a mistake that Tricky did. He prioritized picking up the Halcyon Chargers before his Aegis. That's a mistake just because you're the only target that the enemy is trying to focus. If you are that target, you're gonna want to prioritize a little bit more defense so that you're a little bit tankier, you can survive longer, get more use out of your Eve, more use out of the fountain you're being given from your captain and the polite company and so on. So the Halcyon Chargers being picked up allowed Tricky to be focused down by the Taka coming from Rikamazu, and that's why they were able to hold off the Kraken push.
Yeah, let's take a look at the final replay from that game as well, the final fight that did go on through this one. Obviously, in the end, does go the way of Mouz, but it was an incredibly close situation.
Yeah, and the combination of not having the Aegis plus the Broken Myth being completed for Rikamazu allowed them to be able to finally take down Tricky, but again, you can see it. They got Tricky down, but they're all on just a sliver of health, and that is more than enough for I'm the Doom to clean up, picking up the triple kill. Rikamazu kind of turning around the wrong way there at the end, but didn't really have many options with so much vision being down. There was so much control over the map that there weren't places for Rikamazu to go to hide with this CP Taka. That's what he wants to do, just pop into the Kaku, heal himself up a little bit, and then re-engage, but he never really had the opportunity.
Yeah, he didn't get to dive in and out. You look like you wanted to add something to that one, Zara.
I mean, the fact that North America are prioritizing Finn so heavily is for good reasons. This is a hero that can get very tanky late game and provides so much peeling to his entire composition by using polite companies. Dynasty, we mentioned before the games that they needed to have really good drafts and have really strong strategies coming in prepared to be able to win this matchup. It didn't seem like they did. The first game and the second game and the third game, in my opinion, they had the weaker draft. Why? Like, have better preparation. If you know you're the weaker team, you got to have an advantage somewhere. And the draft was their advantage. They let down.
There's a disconnect there somewhere, and it does mean that Mouz are going to take this series. The MVP for this series is going to be that classic I'm the Doom. This guy, we know how strong he is as a player. He always steps up, and this series especially really, really lived up to his reputation.
Yeah, was able to just be aggressive, and again, Tricky unlocking this potential for him a bit of just having that extra threat. They had to focus Tricky this game, and it allowed I'm the Doom to just come in with these afterburns late into the team fights more often than not, so that he just has a pick of the litter. He could choose who he wants to go on to. Like, it's not a matter of can he get the angle, it's which angle does he want to take.
Yeah. So in the end, it is going to be Mouz taking this one. Mowgli heartbroken off the back of this one. His whole team taking him out in the first stage of this bracket. Final thoughts on this series, gentlemen, before we move on with the day.
Mouz Sports winning this matchup doesn't mean too much for them because they're still making mistakes. Similar to the G2 versus Fnatic, both teams that are winning, they're not having completely clean play. There are a lot of mistakes that need to be solved and need to be improved on, especially if they want to win once they go up against SK.
And I'm going to look at Dynasty here a bit. Their in-game play was, I think, almost even better than Mouz Sports at times, but their drafts